Cheese! Wake up, buddy! It's time to get up!
No, I'm asleep.
But you have to make a video. It's almost the end of 2021. No, I'm too tired. I'm gonna be staying in bed all day, and there's nothing you can do about it. Your PlayStation 5 console just arrived. Wait, what? Oh, sick! I've been waiting for this bad boy for ages! Thanks, man. I definitely owe you one. Well, let's not waste time. Let's open it and check it out. What? 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 What is it? There's no PlayStation 5 inside! Oh, god damn it! I knew I should have not bought it from Craigslist. Oh, wait a second. Hold your horses. There's something in there. It's not a PlayStation 5, but it's something, and just by looking at it from my point of view, it just so happens to be a video game from Insomniac Studios called Marvel Spider-Man for the PlayStation 4. Spider-Man will always go down for me personally as not only the first superhero I've laid my eyes on a television screen, but also one of my cherished and beloved superheroes of all time. It's very easy to understand his motives and his thought process on how he does things as a hero. Saving a civilian from a fire, or stopping a robbery at a local bank, you can always trust on New York's #1 friendly neighborhood Spider-Man to help save the day. As a kid, I was so addicted to the character and the villains surrounding him. Of course, as a die-hard video gamer, my first introduction to the character was Spider-Man 2 Enter Electro. I never knew what a Spider-Man was back then. All I know is that my parents knew this was a safe and harmless game for anyone at any age, and I did enjoy stopping the bad guys and completing missions. Later on, down the track, I saw the Spider-Man movie with Tobey Maguire, and thus began my love with the character itself. Over the years, I have watched a ton of movies and TV shows and played nearly every Spider-Man game out there, from Spider-Man 2000, Spider-Man the movie game, Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man 3, and Ultimate Spider-Man. God, that was a lot of Spider-Mans. I somehow remember playing Spider-Man Friend or Foe, which was a very weird experience for me. And don't get me started on the Amazing Spider-Man series. I will turn that shit down faster than YouTube disabling the dislikes. And here is where the video actually truly starts. I was pondering on what video I wanted to make before the year 2021 ends. Left, right, and center, I thought about ideas but turned down every single one of them. Nearly dragging myself into a corner, I remember seeing the Spider-Man No Way Home trailer, and then a light bulb hit me. It was staring right in my face this whole time. And so, this brings us to talking about Marvel's Spider-Man for the PlayStation 4. Developed by Insomniac Studios, which I'm pretty sure you know who they are and what games they're responsible for. It's been nearly 3 years since I've played this game, and I figured maybe it's time to go back and see if this game still holds up as one of the best PlayStation 4 games of all time, before I settle myself into the PlayStation 5 era. The one thing I really appreciate is there's no original backstory on how Spider-Man is born. No seeing the death of Uncle Ben, no with great power comes great responsibility story arc. It's just you and Spider-Man with 8 years of crime fighting experience at just the age of 23, getting stuck into the action. Don't get me wrong, I do love the origin story of Peter Parker and how he becomes Spider-Man, cause it's storytelling at its finest. But then again, it does get a bit exhausting hearing it over and over again, to a point where you insert the "oh shit, here we go again" meme. So I do like how Insomniac approaches it here and just said to themselves, you know what? Screw it. Everyone knows the origins, so let's skip it and move on to the good stuff straight away. I thought it was a nice and smart decision from them. I would love to show you the intro of the game, but my HDR settings on my TV somehow couldn't cope with my game recording device, which is using the PlayStation 4 system itself. You can see here from my point of view on how it turned out, and it was a nightmare for me. So I had to go into the game settings and turn off the HDR in order to continue recording game footage. To me, it's not a big deal. The story sees Spider-Man capturing Frisk and the authorities taking him away to the Raft, a maximum security prison for all the main villains because he's such a big boy. Yes you are, yes you are! We later learned that an organization called the Demons, led by Mr. Negative aka Martin Lee, was seeking a dangerous toxic gas codenamed the Devil's Breath, which once allowing the gas flow into the body causes sickness and eventually death. So if it falls into the wrong hands, bad things will indeed happen, obviously. As the plot thickens, we see Norman Osborn, Otto Octavius, and Peter's ex-girlfriend Mary Jane getting involved in the middle of this crisis, and so Spider-Man has to do only what he can do, to save the civilians of New York and defeat the bad guys before a terrible accident occurs. Now, from my explanation, the story does seem simple and straightforward, and it does through Act 1 and somewhat Act 2, but everything will pick up and move at a fast pace where you will be engaged with the story. And we will talk more about the bits and pieces as we move forward with the game itself. All in all, I love the story in Marvel Spider-Man. It isn't taken from the comic books, but it certainly feels like it. I haven't felt like that since playing Batman Arkham Asylum, which gives me a reminder to get myself back and continue onto the Arkham series ASAP. All for another time. Let's get into the gameplay segment, and by God, Insomniac did a great job in terms of gameplay. Let's start off with quite obviously my favorite part in this game, and that would be the swinging. If you love to web swing in Spider-Man 2, then you'll definitely love it here. It's like they took the swinging gameplay style from Spider-Man 2 and applied it in Marvel Spider-Man and made it more fresher, more up-to-date, and just downright better. You use the R2 button to start web swinging, and you can use the jump button after you swing to get higher and gain more speed and momentum. You can also web zip, a zip to point move, and wall run to keep yourself moving forward whenever you're running to the roof or side to side of the building. You can use the L3 stick to zoom fast straight down, and once you start swinging again, you'll obtain a lot of speed on your side. I love the web swing here, and I always avoid using fast travel unless I'm being forced to, which I believe was only once out of the entire game. Of course, you can fast travel in this game, but why would you? Because going from A to B is a cool and relaxing journey while also picking up things you might miss out on. As far as the combat goes, yeah, it is sorta similar to the Batman Arkham formula where you defeat waves of enemies and use your gadgets and dodging attacks as you go along, but I wouldn't go as far to say they copied the combat. I like to think they took the base of it and just added their own style and flair to it to create a unique type of combat gameplay. You have your basic attacks like punching and kicking, and you also have your web strike, your swinging strike, and air launch, and you also have your combo finisher to knock out enemies down to the floor. You have a combo counter that increases every time you land a hit, but when Spider-Man takes damage, the counter will go back to 0. You also have a meter that'll increase as well, and you can use it for a finishing blow or to heal Spider-Man up. Spider-Man uses his Spidey sense to detect an upcoming attack is about to happen, and by seeing it, you can dodge and avoid getting hit. And of course, you have your gadgets like the web shooter, which you can web up enemies so they don't get back up, electric web, which they can stun the bad guys for a short period of time, and that's only stretching the surface. I only mentioned a handful of things you can do, as there are heaps more. There are tons more you can do, which I still haven't gone around to use it yet, but I can't wait to do so. You'll also witness different types of enemies, like your standard type, an enemy with a shield, a big brute, and someone holding a crowbar to counter your basic attacks. You also have the demon enemies, the prison enemies, and the team from Sable International. There are a variety of things you can do in the combat sections, and I cannot get enough of them. You even have the stealth gameplay side of things too, sneaking around and stalking your prey just like how a spider can. With using your senses, you can see if your enemy is labeled as safe, so you can perform a takedown without getting spotted. And danger, meaning that you'll have to wait until the danger sign passes. You can either take down your enemies silently with stringing them up, or with brutal force that sees them lying on the ground, but it will be easier for the enemies to spot them. If nothing seems to be going your way, you can always distract or move them to a different location by using your gadgets. It's honestly really satisfying to pull these off without being noticed. The gameplay overall is great, fun, and pretty much flawless. Well, except for the glitch I spotted here, but let's be honest, every video game has at least one. I don't want to say this game makes you feel like Spider-Man because it'll be extremely cliche, and pretty much anything you do could make you feel like someone else. Making peanut butter and jam toast made me feel like a toaster or something like that. But it does. No, not the toaster. This game truly made me feel like Spider-Man. And if you want further proof of that, you can interact with civilians, give them high fives, or encouraging them to be positive. It's not always just beating up bad guys and sending them to prison. Marvel Spider-Man offers a more down-to-earth kind of hero compared to other Spider-Man games out there, which is pretty cool if you ask me. And the music here does help bring the more dramatic and tense scenes to life, even though to me it's mostly just generic and forgettable superhero music, but it's fine. At the end of the day, the OST is only there to serve its purpose in the cutscenes. And here we have the collectible side of things. Is it just me, or am I the only one who feels there's way too many collectibles to get? I feel like I've gotten some flashbacks from Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time. As the story moves along, you'll get new collectibles to find and collect as the game rolls on, and to me, by the time they brought something new for a fourth time, I kinda wanted them to stop, but they just kept sending out more new collectibles to find. I suppose it brings some gameplay value to the game, so I shouldn't complain that much, but it does get to the point where it becomes overwhelming and eventually the player, aka me, who is pretty busy outside of YouTube nowadays, can't really push on to that 100% completion.
Wait, hold on, stop everything, pause the video.
Man, I'm so glad I was able to catch up with all of you. This is Future Cheese, from the future, talking to all of you that I have managed to 100% Spider-Man. So what I said earlier about I don't have time to do it, just forget about it, okay? Just forget all about it, throw it out the window, throw it in the trash, whatever you may do. I've already done it. It's 100% completed, it's finished. So I just thought, I just thought I'd let you know on that. And now this is a very, very awkward time because I don't know how to transition myself back into the review. Is it just me, or is my spidey sense tingling?
But anyway, you can collect tokens. There's many kinds of tokens to get, like the backpack one where you find a number of backpacks that Spider-Man left back in the day. You have your base tokens where you take out waves of enemies in their base. You have the crime tokens to stop any active ongoing crimes in New York. Research tokens where you're seen completing a minigame of sorts for Harry Osborn. Or you can collect pigeons, I suppose. Challenging tokens where you try and get the best score. The higher the score, the more tokens you get. And you have the landmark tokens where you take pictures of different buildings and sites you see. And by the way, being able to take pictures while swinging at the same time is so cool to perform. It's not all that bad, but I did feel there's a bit too much going on when it comes to the collectibles. You have puzzles too, which I'm not a fan of. I feel they drag the gameplay side down a bit, but I do understand where Insomniac is coming from, as they wanted to add different types of gameplay features. Whenever it's matching the same pattern or guiding electricity from A to B, the puzzles did not do it for me, and I did not care about them. Especially the option where you can skip the puzzle if you take too long, and if that's the case, then what was the point of adding the puzzles in the first place if you can just skip it entirely? It doesn't make sense to me. And then you have the quick time events, which are a massive pet peeve for me. I always hate them no matter what kind of video game I'm playing. 1 minute I'm watching a cutscene so I can put my controller down and do my own thing, but next minute you have a button appearing on screen that you have to mash, so I have to quickly stop what I'm doing to get back into the game. But by the time I do, I've already failed. Technically, you can turn off the quick time events in the main menu screen, so I suppose this topic isn't relevant, and even though there's only a handful of them appearing on screen, but still, every time I see one of them, I just want to let out a long and frustrated sigh. Like I mentioned earlier, you'll see a more down-to-earth kind of Spider-Man, and you'll witness it as you not only play as Spider-Man, but Peter Parker as well. In fact, I say 50% of the story will see you play as Peter. And at first, I was skeptical and thought it would have flopped massively, but it actually turned out to be one of my favorite parts in the story. You see Peter really trying to balance his life outside of his suit, as he is overdue for his rent pay, helping out Aunt May doing some volunteer work at Feast, bumping into his ex-girlfriend Mary Jane Watson and seeing if he can try and bring that connection back, and helping out his buddy Otto Octavius with his studying on trying to fix people who have lost one arm or one leg, for example, to give them a second chance. I like the cutscenes with the two together. It demonstrates that Otto is like a father figure to Peter, and Pete does look up to Otto a lot. Halfway into the game, Peter will also help out a young kid named Miles Morales to help him get back on his feet after the unfortunate death of his father. Switching from Spider-Man to Peter is always a joy to me, and it brings a nice change of pace without slowing anything down. Well, maybe that was a lie. Not only do you play as Spider-Man and Peter, but you also play as Mary Jane and Miles in these short stealth sequences, where you avoid enemies so you can go to the next destination.
I've already done this joke before, but yeah, this is boring.
Again, this part really slowed the gameplay down for me. I mean, we pretty much go from a Spider-Man game to a Metal Gear Solid game in a heartbeat. But again, Insomniac did want to add different types of gameplay so it wouldn't be too boring, but I don't know about that. I think this is something I would not do if I was in that board meeting because it doesn't fit well in a Spider-Man video game. It might work with the Spider-Man character himself, but not with other people.
But anyway, this will be the part where I talk about the third act, so hope you like spoilers! But yeah, seriously, if you're not a fan of spoilers, then I highly suggest you skip to this timeline right here to check out my overall thoughts about the game.
Otto Octavius realizes that they've been looking at the project in the wrong way. Instead of trying to fix people, why not improve them and make them feel better than they once were? So Otto created 4 giant robotic arms that can be controlled from his brain being connected to a computer chip. However, Peter did some further research, and using this in a long period of time can alter someone's personality. Otto refuses to take it off at first, but then he finally does after some convincing. So later on in the story, Spider-Man ends up beating Mr. Negative and sending him off to the raft. Later on in the nighttime, a massive explosion hits the raft, and as Spider-Man was checking it out, it appears that Electro, Rhino, Vulture, Scorpio, and Mr. Negative have broken free from prison and are working together. By the way, the scene where you chase Electro around the raft is just orgasmic. Hell, the entire game itself looks fantastic. It honestly has one of the best New York designs I've seen in a long time. Then, the mastermind is revealed to be Otto Octavius, who is now going by Doc Ock. All the villains are working for Doc Ock and instructing them to do their job. And Doc Ock, with his hands on Devil's Breath as mentioned earlier, releases the gas to the public and everyone gets infected. Even Aunt May is infected from it, sadly. So that's pretty much your third act, as you, with the assistance of Mary Jane and Miles Morales, try to defeat all the villains and send them back to prison while finding the cure to save the people of New York. I'll say it here that the bosses in Marvel's Spider-Man go from good to average at best. Each boss does have its different methods to beat them, and I like it for that, but it can get repetitive as you'll do the same thing over and over until you win, which in today's standards is pretty generic, especially for a superhero video game. Even the final boss with Doc Ock was pretty underwhelming for me. My favorite boss fights, if I had to break it down, it would have to be the battles with Mr. Negative and fighting against Taskmaster. After defeating Doc Ock, Spider-Man finally has obtained the cure, but in a unfortunate turn of events, Aunt May being exposed from Devil's Breath is on the verge of dying, and the small amount of cure that they currently have needs to be worked on so they can create more of it for the people of New York. So, Peter has a difficult choice to make with either saving one life or saving thousands. I'm not going to tell you this, as I would rather show you this scene because this cutscene took my breath away, and that was no pun intended. It's not only one of the most powerful scenes in the game, but in the entire Spider-Man universe, in my opinion.
You're gonna be okay, ma'am. I've got the cure right here.
Take off your mask. I want to see my nephew.
You knew?
I've known for a while.
I never wanted you to worry.
I did. And I am so proud of you. And Ben would be too. All the people you've saved.
I don't know what to do.
Yes, you do.
So because of her death, they managed to develop more of the cure so everyone who was sick was saved. The end credits shows Peter and Mary Jane getting back together in the most cringiest way possible. Norman secretly had his son Harry in a tube, which will tie into Marvel's Spider-Man 2, and Miles Morales discovering his spider powers, and that'll also tie into the spin-off game Spider-Man Miles Morales, which is something we will get into for another time.
But for now, let's wrap things up. And that pun right there was fully intended. Get it? Cause Spider-Man uses his spiderweb. He defeats the bad guys. He catches them, and he uses his spiderweb to wrap things up.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
I honestly do think that whoever currently owns a PlayStation 4 or even a PlayStation 5, they should definitely add this into their collection and try it out. It is probably up there as one of the best Spider-Man games I've played, not because of its gameplay, but its narrative as well. The story was engaging, the swinging was fun, the gameplay was cool, the characters were great, and the bosses, while not the best, but I still enjoyed them. Yeah, there's a few issues I have with the game itself, and hopefully it'll be worked on or improved upon in the next sequel.
So with that said, I'll be giving Marvel's Spider-Man a score of 8 out of 10. Is Marvel's Spider-Man my favourite PlayStation 4 game of all time? Well, not exactly. I would put this in my top 5 favourite PS4 games, but if you were to ask me the same question back in 2018, I would say, you're goddamn right. But anyways, thank you for watching this review, and if you enjoyed it, make sure to leave a like, share the video, and subscribe to the channel. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, the links will be down in the description box below. My name is Cheese and Crackers, telling you to keep calm and keep playing video games.